Hey everybody, this is Zev or Shinra, your dungeon officer for the guild Deadmen. This video is to hopefully help encourage people to do Mythic Plus and some little tips and tricks. Precursor, I am assuming that most people watching this are probably going to be around 630 eye level, and we are heading into Season 2 of The War Within. So let's get into it. Um, One thing I want to say about Mythic Plus is I feel like you get to express yourself more as a player in Mythic Plus than you do in Raid because there's such a smaller player, you're doing it with 5 people as opposed to 20. In 20, you kind of just tend to get lost in the sea of DPS and everybody else playing. So Mythic Plus is, definitely fun and, you can pick up a lot of skill. There's very many good things to learn out of Mythic Plus. So why should we do Mythic Plus, right? That's the number one question here, and the answer is very simple. We want loot, and we want to get better at the game. So with that, we're going to go into how can Mythic Plus skill transfer into Raid. And the first and foremost reason I can think of is the proper use of defensives. Defensives are something that a lot of players tend to like completely forget about that they even have them, which is kind of crazy. But if you're never challenged, you may never think to push your defensives. So it's very good to, understand your toolkit. Now, what we're going to talk about here is defensive usage very briefly because defensive usage is different for every class. Everyone has like a different amount of defensives. I have a video here that can really highlight why defensives are so important. We've probably all done Dawnbreaker this season, and here in the second boss, we find that this boss has two AoE attacks, right? There's a dark orb that flies out and does a bunch of AoE damage, and then there's a channel that the boss does, which also does AoE damage. Both of them are pretty easily dealt with. However, there is a point in the fight, which is highlighted by this guy's add-on here, um, where they come out basically simultaneously. So you're going to get AoE damage on top of AoE damage, and this is the point in the fight where you'd have to use defensives, you'd have to use your party-wide, raid-wide defensives like Zephyr, like anti-magic zone, that kind of thing if you have it. Um, and then, you also may need to use like a healing cooldown if you're the healer. So these are all things to think about. And if you don't use these defensives in this example, if you just don't have any, you use them poorly, or just don't even think about using them, chances are you're probably going to die. And we all know that dead DPS do no DPS. So that's it. We're going to take a look at it in real time. Um, Keeping in mind, so here's the Dark Orb. It's going to fly out and do a bunch of damage. Now keep in mind, all these guys probably have already used their defensives here. A big note is that bad players tend to use defensives after damage has been done, so you want to use it preemptively. So there was the AoE damage, and notice how they lived. This is a plus 19 dungeon, excuse me. So all of that amount of damage they mitigated was insane. They would not have survived had they not used their defensives properly here. Um, the next thing I'm going to talk about very, very briefly is in dungeons, it's generally speaking good advice to just send your cooldowns almost on cooldown. So whenever your cooldowns are up, generally speaking, it's probably okay to press them. The only instance where this may not be the most optimal is if you're going to pull a very small pack, or if you're pulling, say, like a really small pack and about to do a boss. Generally speaking, obviously, your cooldowns are more effective in larger packs because you're going to get more mileage out of your cooldowns. Anyway, that all will come in like how you learn to do dungeons and like the cadence of which dungeons are pulled. So we're going to talk next about healing. Our guild has a long history of healers competing with each other for being the highest HPS per second. Um, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's not healing meters are not as important as our guild would like to make them seem to be. Honestly, what is actually a better metric to judge healers by, and this might sound counterintuitive, is their damage. Um, if you're not healing, you don't always have to be healing 24/7 in raid fights, generally speaking. So why not do some damage? And then in dungeons, your healer doing damage is incredibly important. As you can see, even though this is just an AUG, their healer is actually beating him in damage done, which is kind of crazy. Anyhow, um, so yeah, you know, as a healer, your healing cooldowns are important, and you're trying also to do damage in your downtime. That's what makes the difference between a good healer and a bad healer. Bad healers in raid will do literally zero damage, and it's fine. They don't always need to do damage, but it's something that you could be doing to make things a little bit easier. All right. So right now, what we're going to talk about next is the meta, and I'm bringing this up because a lot of people pug keys and they have very little success in getting accepted. So I want to explain a little bit why that is. So if we see, this is a chart in which from high to low, these people get this idea. It's not exactly an idea, it's like more proven facts, but they think that only these classes can be invited to keys, where really that's only true at like the 0.01% of gameplay, which none of us are involved in, even myself. So if you're seeing your class in some of these lower tiers, don't panic. It's fine. You're not worthless. It's just a reason you may not be getting accepted into pugs right away. Which brings me to my next point, why IO, dungeon score, and eye level is important. Because there's very few metrics for a key holder to judge players who are applying to his key. So we have three things we can judge by. We can judge by their spec, their IO, and their eye level. So it's kind of like a job, you're applying for the same position and they're just going to take the most highly qualified people in terms of those three metrics. The easy way to avoid this is to host your own key, which obviously you get the control. You can invite whoever you want. You don't necessarily have to invite the meta. You can invite anybody, assuming their IO, everything is good otherwise. Like, if you see a Windwalker monk, he has high eye level, high IO, you can bet he's probably good. You can invite him. That's fine. Anyways, the other thing that is going to help you get by, and this is the method that I would prefer most, and I'm sure most of guildies would feel the same. Use your guild. Use your guild mates. Getting together with your guilds, generally guild mates, excuse me, and running keys is going to be the best way. Most of our guild is very friendly, and most of them are very good. So it's easily possible to have success running keys with your guild mates. That is by far the best method if you want to have success in keys. Um, Something I'm going to talk about now is your etiquette when pugging, just some do's and don'ts. My first piece of advice is to just be kind, don't be rude. Um, you're never going to get the result you want by being rude to random people that you're never going to talk to again. Um, you know, Kindness costs nothing. It'll be way better for your mental health. I promise you'll have an overall better experience. The next piece of advice I have, which kind of stems from piece of advice number one, is don't make your tank's life harder. Don't insult them. Don't talk shit to them. Just be kind to them. If they're doing a route you don't like, you know, that's just how they tank. Every tank is different, and tanking is by far the hardest position to play in Mythic Plus. They dictate everything that happens in your run, pretty much. They're in charge of, what packs you're going to pull and how big you're going to do it. If you have what you feel like isn't a good tank, just get through it. Hopefully you get a better tank in your next key. Just, be kind to your tank. The next thing I'm going to talk about is uh, when you're in dungeons, try to learn. Try to find out which casts I'm sorry, which mobs are doing the big damage casts. Those are things that you have to kick. Kicking is very important in dungeons. It's something that a lot of players tend to overlook. Interrupts and stuff like that also work well for gray bar casts if they are vulnerable to stun. Anyways, my point is that, we're all starting out learning these dungeons. Most people haven't done them. So there's going to be, essentially another meta in terms of how dungeons are ran. So learn. The other thing I would say is use add-ons. Add-ons are very good. Weak auras are very good. They can give you warnings that some packs are casting big spells. Maybe when to use a defensive, or even if a boss is going to become vulnerable, and you can use your offensive skills to do even more damage. So add-ons are your friend. Don't shy away from them. They can definitely help you. All right, real quick, gonna consult my notes. All right. So we're gonna wrap things up on the rewards of doing Mythic Plus, the importance of the vault, and how to spend our crests. So the rewards from Mythic Plus this season are very good, and they come at a very early key level, which is 6. Try to understand that if you're doing Mythic Plus level 6, you're getting heroic track gear, which is the same from heroic raid. And I cannot understate how important that is and how beneficial that is to get this level of gear. Um, yeah, farming these in like the first week will help catapult your character to such a powerful stage. You can possibly even go into heroic raid and barely need the gear at all. Now, what would be even better is to slowly, or if however fast you can get there, 10 is the goal. And the reason getting plus 10s done is so important is we want this myth track level gear in our vault. And I'm going to talk about filling the vault in 1 second here. Our guild will have some form of mandated amount of 10s we want you to get at some point in the season, which will probably be sooner than later. Um, for me personally, I have to fill my vault. I genuinely have to fill my vault. I'm going to show you guys an example of why in one moment here. I should have had my game already loaded. Sorry about that. But yes, we want to fill our vault really badly to get more options at loot. I'm going to talk about crests for 1 second here while my game loads up. Um, when we start doing these higher level of keys, you notice we get the end game crest. This is by far the best way to farm these. These can be used to upgrade mythic track gear. Um, but more than likely, you'll probably be saving these things early in the season for your crafted pieces. This stuff, you want to be very careful how you spend it. It is super, super important to not waste. Um, so yeah. Oh shit, I'm fucking not in Donegal. Please bear with me for 1 second while I fly there. Actually, I think I can show it like this. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you guys. So, as you know, the more things you unlock, or the more dungeons you do, you need to do 8 to unlock all 3 slots. Um, obviously, I'm not gonna, no one in the guild is going to be bearing down on you for not unlocking all 3 slots. But the more slots you unlock, obviously give you the better chance at loot. So, it's very important, at least for me, I have to unlock all 3 slots because sometimes it is this third slot that has the chase piece of gear you're hoping for. I cannot express how like game changing it is to get a big weapon or a sought after trinket on mythic track on like week 1 or week 2, or even just getting a tier piece at mythic on that level is so absurdly powerful. It is helping yourself more than you can ever imagine. And like I said, if you're watching this, you're probably a Mythic Raider with us, and you are more than capable of doing these keys. I know every single Raider we have is 1000%. These are very, very reachable goals. Pushing much beyond 10 is pretty much purely for, cosmetic rewards and ego points or just raising your dungeon score. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's also absolutely nothing wrong with just stopping at 10 and enjoying the rewards you get from it. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you all so much for listening if you did. And, hopefully we have a great season. I will see you all in season 2. Goodbye, everybody.